It's perfect. You don't really think of goats and cookies together, do you? My husband, he says it's because they're satanic goats. I don't even think the devil eats cookies, does he?
Hey guys, Pete here. Today I'll be talking about the first part of Ozark Season 4, which was just released on Netflix. Because this is part 1 of 2 that will make up the final season, it seemed unlikely that the Byrdes would get out from under the cartel, but they were so close. Because Marty is extremely good at what he does and Wendy has now gone full Heisenberg, it was necessary to introduce some new characters to derail their plans and to add some internal conflict in the family, with Jonah changing sides and deciding to work with Ruth and Darlene. We saw how one of those new characters, Javi, undermined their chance to get free and clear during part 1, and saw the other, a private investigator named Mel Sattem, emerge to probably serve a similar role in part 2. I'll be getting into all of that, plus what happened at the end right after this quick spoiler warning. If you haven't watched all 7 episodes of Ozark Season 4 Part 1, then this video won't be for you. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. I do want to mention that the season starts with a flash forward to the entire family together in the minivan, where they all seem to be getting along. There's talk of 48 more hours and calling for the moving company, but a truck veers into their lane, and when they swerve to avoid it, they crash, rolling the van on the side of the road. We never revisit this scene in the 7 episodes that follow, so what's going on here and when it happens remains a question mark. The present storyline picks up right after the season 3 finale. And I mean right after, as in the Byrdes have yet to wash Helen's brains out of their hair. After they do that, we meet Omar Navarro's nephew, Javi Elizondro, aka Javi, and learn that he's well-spoken and eager to play a larger role in running the family business. He went to university in Chicago and was close with Helen, and later says that he voted to kill them instead of her when that came up. He also brings up Darlene Snell, which means that the Byrdes are now tasked with getting her to shut down her operation, and later Navaro backs him up on this. He explains that if he shows any weakness, Javi could make a move to try to take over. He also tells the Byrdes that he wants them to set up a deal with their FBI contacts. He'll give up his cartel, but he wants to be able to move freely between the US and Mexico, and he's essentially looking for immunity for all of his crimes. They tell him that there's no way that they can make that happen, and he reminds them that they don't really have a choice. The bright side is that if they pull it off, they'll be free of their obligation to him, and that sets up what they have to try to do for the rest of the season. After Ben's death at the end of season 3, Ruth Langmore stopped working for Marty and threw in with Darlene and her cousin Wyatt. At the beginning of season 4, she buys the Lazy O Motel to launder their money, and this is where we first met her and her cousins when the Byrdes came to town in season 1. She's got a problem though. She knows how to run Marty's laundering software, but doesn't know how to make her own. This is what will eventually lead to her teaming up with Jonah, who's developed software at age 14, which is impressive even if the actor has outgrown his role in the past couple of years. He's still upset about learning from Helen that his parents had been killed, and after Wendy decides to take the hard approach in trying to bend him to her will, he goes full Team Ruth for all 7 episodes. On the other hand, Charlotte is completely on board with the family business and has even decided she's going straight into it rather than going to college. Beyond reaching out to Wyatt and threatening Helen's daughter Erin at one point, they don't give her much to do in these episodes. But I couldn't help noticing that the actor made a real attempt to copy some of Laura Linney's mannerisms, which shows how much she's starting to take after her mother. Helen's disappearance has brought another new character to town. Mel is a private investigator that says he was hired by her husband to get her signature on divorce paperwork. He has a habit of showing up at inopportune times, and after observing the Byrdes for a while, he starts to believe that Ben might have been involved with Helen's disappearance. Of course, Ben is dead, so he's barking up the wrong tree, but he may turn out to be a real problem for Marty and Wendy. When they looked into his past, they learned that he was a cop that was really good at his job before his substance abuse issues led to him getting caught in the evidence room and losing his badge. For most of the season, Wendy is making big moves in her attempt to turn them into one of the most powerful families in the Midwest. And that includes working with a pharmaceutical company whose reputation has taken a hit for their role in helping to create the opioid crisis. That helped her put together a $150 million war chest after she stole Jim out from under Charles Wilkes and made him their full-time attorney. I compared her to Walter White earlier because this has completed her transformation that started back in season 2. It's clear this has all gone to her head, and she makes 2 questionable decisions that will make things difficult for the family going forward. The first was to use her brother Ben for what she says is good PR, saying that he had a drug problem and using the fact that he's missing to her advantage. This causes problems with Marty and with Ruth, and that brings Darlene into things to try to stick up for Wyatt's cousin. The second is that she tries to force Jonah into coming back to the family, and when that doesn't work, she goes as far as trying to get him arrested. By the time we get to episode 7, Marty has mostly been able to neutralize Javi, whose uncle is actively working on a deal with the FBI behind his back. He had convinced Navaro to give Maya information that would lead to seizures to keep her happy, and that worked until Javi rigged one of those with a bomb. This led to Navaro deciding to give him up. He told him that he was stepping aside and that he'd be the new boss, and then set a meeting with the FBI. Jim is on hand to explain all of that, and that Omar will provide the necessary information to neutralize his cartel entirely. The problem there is that the FBI has been enjoying the extra money they've been getting through those cash seizures, and have decided that they want him to continue being a drug lord for 5 more years. After that, they can grant him immunity from prosecution in the US. Since he's already told Javi that he was taking over, it means that he would have to kill him, and the FBI knows that, and they're okay with that. Maya is not okay with it though. She can't believe what she's hearing, and her boss has to explain that they're trying to collaborate as a way to make progress, and that she has to think about the big picture. Because if they take Navaro down, someone else will just rise up to take his place. Maya says sarcastically that she thought they were just trying to justify 5 more years of seizures, and the truth is likely somewhere in the middle, but it undermines everything she believed about her job. In the end, Navaro realizes he doesn't have any other options. He knows he'll likely get screwed over in the end, but he agrees to the 5-year deal. The FBI tells Marty and Wendy that they'll take over their role with the cartel, and thanks them for their service to America. And they were just that close to getting out, but it wasn't meant to be. Javi finds out that Shaw Pharmaceuticals was able to make their production goals even while he was withholding his product. He calls Claire, who tells him that Marty provided a stopgap, and when pressed, gives up Ruth's description. Things hadn't been going good for her because Darlene found out that she did the deal with Marty and had also killed Frank Sr. in a rage. And so Ruth and Wyatt were going to take off together, and she took the opportunity to tell Frank Jr. about what happened to his father. Because Wendy contacted social services and told them about Darlene's heart attack though, they were coming to take Zeke. And when Wyatt found out about that, he wasn't able to leave her. He decided to marry her to keep that from happening. Ruth is initially upset because they were that close to getting out themselves, but she eventually accepts it and then has to go and tell Frank Jr. that he can't kill her. At the same time, things take a real turn for the Byrdes when Navarro returns to his plane where he's surrounded by cops and taken into custody. Maya went behind her boss's back and made a move against him, and now there's nothing that they can really do about it. This worries Marty and Wendy because they're afraid that Javi's gonna think that they were involved because Maya was. He sends Charlotte to go get Jonah and take him into hiding at Buddy's mausoleum, and when she goes to the Lazy-O to pick him up, Mel is there and he overhears part of their conversation. While they're hiding, they do have a talk where she tries to reassure him that they'll always stick together and that they'll always be fine. Marty and Wendy are able to get the FBI to consider a deal with Javi now that Omar is locked up. They need him to contact his nephew and tell him to do it though, and he almost kills Marty before Wendy can talk him into it. The plan is that if he makes a deal, then Navaro will be extradited to Mexico where he can walk away from all of this. Before he leaves, he warns that if he isn't out of jail in 48 hours, Nelson has orders to kill them. Wyatt and Darlene have their wedding at the same time the FBI is explaining the deal to Javi. It's changed to 10 years of running the cartel instead of 5 and includes extra stipulations, which all kind of backs up what Maya was saying. And we see Mel call her on the phone after he sees her on the news and tells her that he's a big fan, which hints at a team up in the second half of the season. Darlene and Wyatt come home to find Javi waiting in their living room. Now that he works for the FBI, he feels emboldened and he shoots and kills both of them and walks out, leaving Zeke crying in the background. Ruth was headed over there to give them their gift and tell them goodbye, and she's the one who discovers the bodies. She grabs Zeke and drives away crying and initially thinks it's Frank Jr., but when she talks to him and realizes he didn't do it, she heads straight to the Byrdes' house. She demands to know who killed Wyatt, and they're reluctant to say anything now that they're relying on the deal between the FBI and Javi. In one final act of rebellion against Wendy, Jonah tells her, and when Marty pleads with her not to get involved with Javi, she screams, "If you want to stop me, you're gonna have to effing kill me." Which you have to imagine Wendy is already considered. She takes her shotgun and storms out and gets into her truck with Zeke and takes off. The episode ends with her driving away, thinking about what she's going to do, and then breaking down screaming. Part 1 ends with a pretty big cliffhanger and the unresolved mystery of the car crash at the beginning. That certainly hints at the family coming back together enough that they're ready to get out again, but there's a lot that needs to happen to get them there. If you think about it, Ruth really has lost it all now that she's lost Wyatt. It's clear that Marty still has a sense of wanting to look after her, but after what happened with Ben, there's no chance she's going to listen to them. And who else is there to talk sense into her? After his deal with the FBI, Javi's in a powerful position, and it's hard to imagine that he won't abuse that. So a lot of great stuff to set up the second part, where anything could still happen, and the wild cards of Mel and Maya still out there to throw things off. Post Ben Wendy has really turned into the most interesting character to watch. There were so many points in these episodes where she seemed so absolutely ruthless. I like that when the Byrdes sort of blackmailed Navaro, saying that if anything happens to them, his kids won't be able to access the money they put aside, he actually took the high road. Imagine sitting down with a cartel boss and you come away looking like the dishonorable one. Also like the twist with the FBI and how they were portrayed. There's a nice parallel with all the dirt Wendy was doing and her counseling Claire, telling herself that she'd be piling good on top of good to make up for all the bad, while at the same time telling her son, who she tried to get arrested, that he needs to grow up because this is America and no one cares how you got your fortune. The family is divided, and nothing that happened in the final moments seemed to put Jonah and Wendy on the path to reconciliation. I also wonder how Jim will feel about working with the Byrdes after what went down, and what that might mean for the foundation. All things considered, things were progressing on that front, and the FBI did relieve them of their money laundering duties for the cartel. Marty even pulled the trigger on the office in Chicago before they found out about Darlene and Wyatt. Ruth is alone and wants vengeance, and I suppose as we near the end of the series, the question will be who makes it out. It will be interesting to see how the different Byrdes approach her situation and where things will land by the end of part 2. And I think that's a good place to leave things. Let me know in the comments what you thought about part 1, how you think things are going to play out, and check back in a couple of days because I'll follow this up with the second video with all my questions about part 2. We're getting to the end of the series, so let me know what you think's going to happen. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.